How long do you think it's going to take you to make $1 million? Now, most people imagine that at some point in their life, they're going to make probably $1 million, maybe more than that. But that is probably like in 10 or 15 or even 20 years. However, what if I told you that you can make $1 million within the next 2 or 3 years? Most people cannot comprehend that because they don't really have a step-by-step plan right in front of them. Now, in the back of your head, you know that it's possible because there are so many people who have actually done it. Not just they made $1 million, but they made like tens of millions of dollars. So that you know that it's possible, but at the same time, because you don't have that plan in front of you, you imagine yourself making that much money 10 or 20 years from now. Now, especially when you take a look at the statistics, you realize that most of the people who already made like $1 million or more, they're pretty old out there. They're not like in their 20s. Yes, there are people who made that much money in their 20s, but most of those people are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And if we talk about like the wealthiest people in the world, they're usually about 50 years old. So if you kind of just zoom out and take a look at the people, you realize that people often overestimate what they can achieve in the long run because it's very easy to sit down there and think and imagine yourself being that rich. But what if I told you that you can do something right now today? Most people cannot imagine that. So most people underestimate what is possible to be achieved within the next six months, within the next 12 years. In fact, I'll tell you more than that. People have no idea where they will be 12 months from now, for example. And that is why most people simply don't understand how the game actually works. So if you want to actually get to that $1 million and build your way out to $1 million, the first thing that you should do is that just understand how the rules of the game actually work. Because any game consists of rules. For example, if you want to win at capitalism, you have to understand how capitalism works. And frankly speaking, most people who are actually working at jobs that barely pay their bills have no clue how capitalism works. And that's why you have so many people who are supporting socialism. Because in socialism, it's kind of the wealth is distributed amongst everybody. So here in this video, I want to give you the most important trick. I mean, it's very easy trick to actually understand how it works, but it's so difficult to stick to it in the long run. But if you do that, it's going to give you the highest chance to actually get yourself to $1 million. This is not a joke. It might sound very simple in the beginning, but don't let that distract you because 99% of the people watching this video are not going to follow it and they're not going to become rich and successful and will never make their $1 million. But if you decide and you take this video seriously and you follow this path, I can tell you for a fact that it's just a matter of time before you get to $1 million. And that trick is planning. Now, most of you are not probably surprised. What? Planning? I thought you're going to tell me some kind of a secret skill that nobody knows about. But let me ask you a question. Do you have a plan for the next 6 months? Do you have a plan for the next 12 months? Do you have a plan where you will be 24 months from now or 2 years from now? Now, when I say that if you have a plan or not, I don't mean some kind of a vague goal that, 3 years from now, I will make this kind of a business that will earn this kind of money, let's say $1 million. That's not a plan. When I say a plan, I mean that there is a specific goal with a specific timeline and a deadline, and you have a step-by-step action for every single day of the entire year that will get you to that goal. I can tell you for a fact that you do not have that. So if you're not planning your time, if you're not planning your goals, if you're not planning what are you going to achieve and how you're going to achieve that, how are you supposed to do that in the first place? And that is very normal because that's what most people do. Most people have no plan for their life. And that's why it's so easy to kind of imagine yourself making so much money far away from the future, like 10 years from now. And it's so difficult to imagine yourself making something real in the next 6 months because it's difficult to do that since you have to take action today. But what action do you have to take? You don't really know. Most people live their lives simply reacting to things that actually happens to them. And that is the unfortunate reality. People don't really plan things, but just react to events that happen to them. So living your life, suddenly you have like a financial problem where you actually need urgently money to pay for some bills, for example, right? So what do? You use your credit card. And now you have used your credit card and now it's time to pay your credit the bills for your credit card, and you don't have that money. So what do? You go and get a second job. You try some kind of a side hustle to pay that bill. Suddenly your friends want to take you to somewhere and you go with them there. People reacting to events end up in some kind of relationships that they never planned of. People end up having kids and family without planning anything. Now, I'm not saying anything against that, but most people's life is not like they have a specific path that they're actually following to achieve a certain goal, but they're just living their lives. Things happen and they follow that path. And then something else happens, then they follow that path. They never intentionally plan to get to a certain place. And it's so difficult to do that because most people, it takes a lot of mental energy and it takes a lot of discipline to actually plan and stick to that plan for long enough time. And that's why it's very easy to imagine yourself achieving some kind of, maybe some kind of a miracle will happen in the next 10 years that will get you to $1 million. Maybe somehow you will stumble up an idea that will make you a billionaire. But chances of that happening is so small that it's never going to happen. And even if it happens, it will happen 1 in a billion people. And if you're in the US, for example, where 340 million people live, or probably maybe 320 million people, the chances of you getting there is less than not 1%, not even 0.1%, but even less than that. And that's why if you want to actually get to $1 million, you should stop reacting to all these things happening, but you should plan your way out to a specific goal that you want to achieve. There are two most important resources that you have. One is time, and the second is energy. So the way you spend your time and energy is going to define what are you going to achieve. Now, everybody has the exact same amount of time, and your energy depends on how you live your life. If you had good sleep, for example, you have more energy. If you had bad sleep, for example, you have bad energy, or you have low energy, I would call it like that. And if you actually spend that energy just reacting to things that are happening on a daily basis, then at the end of the day or at the end of the path, you will not find yourself anyway. But you can take that time and you can take that energy and you can direct it into one thing and ignore everything that are happening, and you will achieve that $1 million or probably more than that. That's how people actually achieve like $100 million, $1 billion, and so on and so forth. So what I actually suggest you to do is that slow down for a moment, stop reacting to everything that are happening, and take this time and take this energy that you have and just direct it into one thing that is going to make you a lot of money, that is going to get you to $1 million. And the best example that I can possibly give you are probably athletes. Now, if you take a look at athletes, for example, you see somebody who is competing in the Olympic Games, and you look at them, you're like, oh my gosh, how on earth does this person run so fast? Or let's take an example of LeBron James, who is one of the best players in the world. And looking at him, it might make you feel like that's some kind of a talent that got him there. But in reality, all he did is that he just took the time he has and he took the energy he has and he planned to spend this time and energy into one thing. And that one thing for him was, for example, throwing that ball into that net. And he got so good at that thing that he just throws that ball better than everybody else. He throws that ball better than most people out. And that's how you get really good at one thing. And getting good at that one thing, if you live in a capitalistic society that most of us today live, you can actually leverage it and turn it into a source of income. So if you take the life of any kind of athlete, you realize that they have taken their time and they have taken their energy and they have literally planned their daily life for years, where all that they do is that they take that time and energy and put it into one thing. So if we're talking about basketball, then it's most likely about throwing that ball and running fast. If we're talking about football, for example, it's about shooting the ball. If we're talking about tennis, then it's about a set of different actions. And that's how you become really good at a certain sport. And when you get really good at that, you can just leverage that skill in such a way where it will turn into a source of income, because it will allow you to play, for example, in the national level. And because you're now famous, people want to sponsor you, you can leverage that skill in such a way where you will promote different kind of products that will pay you for that. Or, for example, you will be paid a lot of money for winning different kind of games because you simply throw that ball better than everyone else. You throw that ball better than most of your competitors out there. And at that point, something happens that we call exponential growth. When you stick to one thing for long enough, something magical happens over time. And that magical thing is exponential growth. Because at some point when you have thrown that ball enough time into the set, you simply get better than everyone else. And that point is somewhere around here. Now, most people are probably at this level. And now you instantly get to this level. And the reason for that is simple, that because you just simply got so good at that thing. And playing sports is just one example. Let me give you a real life example. For instance, you get into law and now you're a lawyer and you defend people in the court. Now, if somebody who just started doing law, if they want to defend somebody, they will have to go through tens of books. They will have to ask people. They will have to Google things in order to find out whether they can defend somebody in a certain way. But if you have actually spent enough time, let's say like 3 years or 5 years of your life, every single day for long enough, you don't have to do all of that thinking. Suddenly you're saving your life a lot of time and energy. And just by looking at one single case, you can instantly come up with a response on how you can defend that person. The same thing could be done, for example, about an accountant or any other job out there. And because you're so good at the thing, you can take more cases and you will instantly be making more money. Now, the problem is that when most people actually get really good at that thing, they get really bad at managing their money. So even though that they have made so much money from that skill, they never become financially independent. They never make millions of dollars. And the reason for that is because they're just bad at investing their money. And that's why if you take a look at the numbers, you realize that almost 80% of people or the athletes end up going bankrupt after retiring. Because they have made so much money, they got really good at throwing the ball, they got really good at running, they got really good at a certain type of skills. But what happens over time is that they made all that money, and now that money is not invested wisely, and that's why they go bankrupt. And that's why if you want to actually get to $1 million, it's not enough for you to get really good at that one skill. You also need to learn how to invest that money. You need to learn where to throw that money. Because the world of investing is very complicated, like any other world out there, anything out there. You can't simply get really good, for example, at basketball. Now, I can throw the ball, but it doesn't mean that I will actually get it into the net every time I throw that ball. Now, the same thing can be applied to investing. If you know how to analyze the market, if you know what are the red flags, what are the green flags, what are the companies you have to pay attention to, you can consistently make good investments. Will you time to time get bad investings? Yes, of course, that will absolutely happen if you get into that world. But as long as you get most of your shots correctly, your investments are going to grow. And that is why investing works just like anything else when it comes to exponential growth. The beginning is going to be extremely difficult, but when you get there, it is going to grow exponential over time, even if you don't invest any money out there. And that's why the challenge is actually to get your first $100,000. When you get there, your money is going to grow on its own. Now, let me give you a very simple example. If you make 10% on $1,000, how much is that? That's just $100. $100 is not even enough to get you coffee for the entire month, right? But let me give you another example. What if you get 10% on $100,000? Now, suddenly that's $10,000. Suddenly that is enough money, for example, to cover some of your bills. Now, let me give you another example. What if you make 10% on $1 million? That is $100,000. That's more money than most people make, not just in the United States, but pretty much everywhere across the globe. So the challenge for you is to get to that first $100,000, and then the growth is exponential. So yes, it's going to take you time. Yes, it's going to take you a lot of effort and dedication to get to that $100,000. Yes, you can do that in 12 months. You can do that in 24 months. It really depends on how much effort you're going to put into it, how much time you're going to put into it, and what stage of life are you in, and how much money you can save, how much money you can invest, and how much time you're ready to put into learning how to invest correctly and properly so that you get the right investments that will grow your money over time. So in order for you to get to $1 million, what you need to do first of all is that you need to plan your days, you need to plan your weeks, you need to plan your months, and you have to plan your years. When you wake up and you think every single day about what you have to do, that is the most energy consuming thing you can possibly do. Because thinking requires more energy than any other activity out there. So if you spend most of your time just thinking all the time, you're never going to accomplish anything. Yes, you have to think about how you plan things. But when you have planned, you wake up every single day and you just do things without actually thinking about them. You put your life on autopilot. So you wake up, you know what you're going to do this today, you know what you will achieve this week, you know what you will achieve this month, and you will know what you will achieve 12 months from now and 24 months from now. And that's how you get your first $100,000. And when you get there, trust me, it's going to get 10 times easier. In fact, it will probably even get like 100 times easier. And if you simply make planning a fundamental part of your life, you have no idea how much your life is going to change. Yes, in the beginning, it will be very, very difficult because you will have to ignore a lot of things out of your life. Trust me, there's so many things that happen into your life that shouldn't be actually happening. They're not important. There are a lot of conversations you're having on day-to-day basis that are not important. You're talking to so many people every single day that are just wasting your time. You're watching so much YouTube. You're watching so much Netflix. You are actually eating so much crap on daily basis. And all that should actually be taken out of your daily activities and should be focused entirely on that one thing that is going to make you most of the money. And that money should be invested wisely that will get you the maximum amount of return. And within a short period of time, it can be a year, it can be 2 years, or it can be 3 years, you can reach that milestone of $100,000, and that $100,000 will easily get you to $1 million. And I really hope that everybody who's watching this video will actually achieve that milestone. More rich people, more happy people. Thanks guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.